ocean to feed one fish commercially, so they're fishing out the oceans to feed fish commercially, which isn't sustainable. And so they're racing all of the fish out of the ocean for a commercial fish meal. And so they're looking for sustainable ways of doing so. And so I said we've been doing it since 2014 as far as these insects, but really got serious about it the last couple of years. And so these are some of the insects that are black certified larvae. So they're actually maggots. And so these maggots, before they turn into a fly, they turn black at the pupate stage. When they turn black, they got about 7 to 10 days before they turn into a fly, and they only live to about 8 days as a fly. And so their main goal is to breed and to repopulate. So they have 500 to 900 babies every time they breed. And so these things are about 40% protein, 30% fat, and also has a natural antibiotic in them that the medical industry uses for certain illnesses. So they squeeze out the lipids out of them, and they use them for certain illnesses in people. And so they was also feeding them to pigs to decrease their mortality rate. And so we decrease their mortality rate in pigs by 5 to 10%. And so instead of feeding those nasty antibiotics or putting antibiotics in the water, you can actually feed these black certified larvae, and it's natural. So this is some of the stuff that we wanted to learn there, and also trying to do some research here at Langston as far as finding sustainable feed to our fish that we're growing inside of our system. This is Dan here. He told me to tell you that the camera added 10 pounds to the picture, and so I wanted to make that clear. But these are the flies here shown. They're all native to every state except Alaska because of the temperature there in Alaska, but you've seen them, but you haven't seen them, so they're flying around. You just haven't noticed the black certified larva. Here, it was a hog farm, and so they had it lined up like with bowling alley lanes. They would take the slurry from the hogs because hogs go to the bathroom as much as 6 times as more as a person, and so it becomes a problem removing that hog waste. When they had rains in Carolinas about over a month ago, they have big old ponds about the size of football fields where they put this hog waste in because it takes about 6 months to compost it. And so for it to break down into compost. And so they would make a slurry out of this hog waste and put it on these lanes here, and they would put the insects about every 10 feet. These insects were able to eat it and make compost in about a 2 to 3 time period as opposed to 6 months. And so we're looking at a sustainable way, not only for manure, but also food waste. Because 40% of the food that we eat goes into landfills, create greenhouse gases, and creates global warming. So we have to figure out what do we do with this food waste. Not only do these insects eat the food waste, but it returns into an animal protein. So you can use this animal larva as a protein source to feed your chickens, pigs, fish, or whatever it may be. Not only that, when they eat the waste or whatever it may be, they also generate a liquid called leachate. This leachate is used as a liquid, it's a black, nutrient-rich liquid that repels other insects. And so inside of our greenhouse, we have a system where it's a patented system where we get the liquid from the compost and we spray our plants with it. We don't have to worry about any other insects inside of our system because it repels the insects naturally. And so we're talking about a sustaining system or reducing our carbon footprint inside of our greenhouse. I work with an architectural design firm called HOK. They usually design stadiums. And so this is our goal here, to build, one of the first urban ag franchisable models that we duplicate in other cities. And so this is where we're trying to get to. This is the ultimate goal. And so we have a community that wants to put a system, aquaponics system in there. We take all the guesswork out, and we have a system that can be implemented and duplicated in other places where you can provide jobs, access to healthy food, health education, research, development, and recreation inside of the community. And so this is our main goal here. This is the concept or the vision they came up with. And you can see the fish where I think, like I said, growing the food is the most revolutionary thing you can do. And that's why that fish is representing there is growing your own food. So this is the model they came up with to build inside of, on 29th and Wabash we're trying to get to. And just an overview look of what it could possibly look like inside of the community where we're in. One of the greenhouses that we're going to do is going to be a greenhouse where we have fruit trees, bananas, oranges growing inside. We also have a pond inside. Kids can actually fish inside of that greenhouse. Whether it's 100 degrees outside or 20 degrees outside, we wanted to be able to offer the opportunity for kids to come and fish inside of the greenhouse. A lot of kids never been fishing before, and so we want to be able to offer that opportunity inside the greenhouse. We want it to be unique, where anybody can come in inside the greenhouse. This is event space, so we're going to do farm to table dinners. So we talk about bringing the community in, where people can actually come in and eat some of the food that we're preparing inside, and actually taste some of the things. And so we have fundraisers, and actually try to cover all our bases in building this system here. And actually won an award of maybe 1,200 entries out of 4 states for a design for this facility here. And so hopefully we'll be able to implement it and get the funds we need by early spring to implement this and by the summer of 2019. We plan on doing some solar, do alternative energy, have a wind turbine and be more educational, where we can teach people about alternative energy, solar and wind. The wind portion is a high requirement, so it'll be more educational than functional. But it'll be inviting community space that people can come in and feel at home and, like I said, remove you from the negative stuff. When I show my boys this, I gave this presentation to my boys a couple weeks ago, and they just couldn't visualize this inside the community because they said it don't look like it shouldn't belong in here. And so we have to change the mindset of the youth that it can be changed, and we have to be part of the change, and you are part of the change in what we're doing here. This was an overhead view of the system here. We have a house actually across the street, so I just partnered up with BRR Architectural Design Firm, and so we have a house that we purchased across the street. It used to be one of the oldest daycares in Kansas City, and so we purchased the house, and the architectural design firm came up with some renderings for us to use for cooking demonstrations, cooking classes, eating some of the food, and having a space that can be rented out for like wedding rehearsals, day parties, or brunches. And so this is directly across the street from where we're located at now. And so being able to have a space like this, just intensifies, and we're actually doing community development. We're not just putting food in a facility or just a greenhouse. We're actually doing community development around our structure there. We even, Dan even purchased some apartment buildings a block down the street to rehab and just change the whole neighborhood of what we're doing. So we're actually doing some community development. And that's one thing we try to teach our boys is that everything you see around you has been developed or have plans to be developed. And looking at urban planning, looking at urban planning design, because they're developing the neighborhoods around you, and you have no idea on how that change is actually affecting you. So being part of the city meetings and budget hearings and things of that nature, just like there was voting yesterday. Your job is not over just by voting. It's holding us people accountable, showing up to the meetings, and being part of the whole system. So there's some of the stuff that we teach our boys in the program here. Just another outlook on what it's looking like where we do classes outside. Just have a nice, comfortable space where there's no space like this on the east side of Kansas City that people can come to. And so we're trying to provide that opportunity for people to come and actually learn and have something that looks nice, of quality, and everybody deserves quality. So we're trying to have that here at Nile Valley. And this is a kitchen where we have like a commercial kitchen where we can do our classes and demonstrations inside of right across the street from the greenhouse. This is just a walkway going into the greenhouse or inside of the house that we're currently on. It looks nothing like this now, but this is where we're trying to visualize and get to. People always ask me, like, where did I get this from? How did I get started? What is my background? I don't have a degree in aquaponics, horticulture. I have a degree in communications, and that's about as far as it gets as far as my academics concerned. This is my great-grandmother. Her name is, we call her Granny Goose, and she was the goose and to all the grandkids. She's a former sharecropper in Jackson, Mississippi, and so she was farming, in Jackson, Mississippi, left at age 16 because of the racial climate in Jackson, Mississippi. She went from Jackson, Mississippi, all the way to St. Louis, from St. Louis in the 50s to LA, where she lived the rest of her life at. And so when I was just building the greenhouse in 2015, we was talking about growing food, aquaponics, and all different types of stuff. And I was talking about coming down to the greenhouse when we get it built, and she said she didn't think she was going to make it. And I knew it was a problem. She said she didn't think she was going to make it because the year before we was in Vegas like 3 o'clock in the morning. She was still going at 3 o'clock in the morning in Vegas, letting it roll. You know, so you know, I knew it was a problem. She was still driving, still doing everything she wanted to do at age. This was age 96 when we took this picture here. And so she was still doing everything. And so she said she couldn't make it. 3 months later, she had cancer. It hit pretty fast, and she passed away. But she lived a great life, and she didn't have no problem telling you how good her life was. She was living her best life, as they say now. And so when she passed, we went to her, stayed at her house. And at her house, that was the first year. Everything pretty much came in a full circle when I went to her house, because that was the first year in almost 90 years she didn't grow anything. Because she always grew food for almost 90 years. She always grew her own stuff. So that was the first year in 90 years she didn't grow anything, because that year they had a drought in California. And so they didn't want anybody watering their garden, watering their grass, things of that nature. So that was the first year that she just actually didn't tend to it. And so we was talking about that. And when I went to her house and we stayed there, I was able to eat a tomato that was kind of sentimental, that was still hanging on. She had a peach tree. She had chickens back there. And so it was kind of sentimental. I got to still eat something that she had planted. And so when we went to her funeral, her neighbor got up to speak and said, you know, we called her Farmer Brown. And so that's when everything kind of made sense, because when she didn't eat, she gave it to people in the community. And so when people always ask where I get it from, you know, I'm just doing what she was just doing on a larger level. She left a legacy that let us keep on doing, that I keep on living out. And so that's pretty much, you know, how I got started, by her showing, you know, me the way. And I'm just doing what she was just doing on a larger level. And that's pretty much, you know, how I got started and why I'm doing what I'm doing now, because it's just in me to give, just in a different way. And so that's pretty much what's going on in Nile Valley Aquaponics, where the more you give, the more you get. And so that's usually my presentation. And thank you guys for having me. And I'll take some questions after we're done.
Anybody have questions?
Okay, I have a question for you. I know you were talking about how, you know, so the aquaponics is in Kansas City.
Kansas City, Missouri, yes.
Oh, okay. So when you said you got it from your grandmother and stuff like that, so that's something that you kind of grew up on, like as a, you know, as like a young child. That's something that you always had the passion for. And,
No, I didn't have a passion for it. I had family from Tyler, Arkansas, which is a country similar to Langston. And I would always go down there as a kid and feed the chickens, the cows, and what else do they have out there? Chickens, cows, and they had farmland out there. And so I was always amused by the cows. You know, there's always stories from my grandparents talking about the cows and feeding them of that nature. But I was always amused. But I grew up in the city, so I really wasn't farming. I would just go there in the summertime, on the weekends, on, you know, holidays. I didn't have a passion for it until, you know, I actually started getting into it maybe about 10 years ago. So.
well, what would, the last thing I have to ask, what would you give somebody advice that wants to, you know, kind of follow in your footsteps? So that's something that I kind of want to base out of, because I'm from Tulsa, and that's kind of, you know, Tulsa kind of already has like a bad rep, but that's something that I kind of always wanted to do, like be a step stool and give back to the community as much as possible. So what would you say would be a remarkable thing that you can, you know, give me if I wanted to, you know, do something like you've done in your community? Just
start, no matter how big or small. Just start, do something. Like I tell the kids, if you don't like the trash around your neighborhood, pick the trash up. You know, be that change where people see you picking up trash, then, you know, everybody else will start following suit and picking up trash. If you put some trash down, then you'll see piles and piles of trash start adding up. You know, and so a lot of times, even when you want to do something, you would think that, you know, the closest people to you be your biggest supporters, but sometimes they're not your biggest supporters. You know, before a lot of people have dreams that before you get a chance to take off, they shoot it down. And so sometimes that affects you if you have a lot of family and friends and you're trying to explain them, you're excited about whatever it is you want to do, and they're not supportive. And so a lot of people just don't have that support system. I have tough skin, so it don't matter what you say. I'm going to use that as motivation to keep pushing and going forward. So I would say, you know, we started with that small little 4 by 8 foot table. And, you know, when people would always say, you know, why you need to go big and why you going to do this, you know, forget what they say and do what you need to do. As far as learning the whole, whatever you want to do, find the best who's doing it. Even though you're going to school, there's professors that's accessible. You can call them. I read papers all the time. I value my time. I haven't, Dan laughed about me the other day because I don't own a TV. Haven't owned a TV in about 7 or 8 years because I don't watch it. I take up too much time in my life. And so I'm putting in the work now, so I have to do it tomorrow. And so, you know, it takes work. It's a grind, you know, a constant grind. And so, you know, everything that always peaches and cream. You're always trying to figure out, you know, how you're going to get above and accomplish whatever you set out to accomplish. Like I said, just start where you at. And, you know, little by little, learn from the best people who's doing it. Like I said, I went to Guangzhou, China. I learned from Will Allen, one of the Time magazine's 100 most influential people. Learn to take criticism. Just keep pushing.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Are you interested in expansion, like with maybe other schools or like schools that need like a help with like a startup?
Yeah, that's what we're trying to get to. Like I said, for that franchise model where once we get it down pat, we try to expand in every other community that's a so-called food desert, urban core, access to healthy food, economic development, all those different things. We want to provide that space for them to have and excel in, like we're planning on doing with Nile Valley. So we're always open to expanding out and reaching out to you guys to do some research to have that documentation on the claims that we can make.
Do you feel that with larger franchises that like such as Walmart and Kroger and et cetera like that, when they since they sell produce and they, like you said earlier, they get other produce imported from different states, do you feel that when your franchise becomes more nationally known, do you think like the other franchises become more obsolete to sell produce because everything is not organic and everybody doesn't always have money to pay for it?
Yeah, everything is not organic and people are becoming more health conscious, and you're going to see a lot more local stuff. So with global warming, 90% of our lettuce comes from California, and so that you're going to see the rise in transportation costs and shipping. And people understand that after you harvest something, after 3 days, it loses 30% of its nutritional value. And so just because you're eating vegetables don't mean it's as healthy as it should be. And so being able to eat something that's fresh, that's locally grown, is actually better than organic because they want to support local community. And so having that available as well.
Dre, also just this young brother's question right here. Can you talk about the Whole Foods and some fresh report to you about buying some of your vegetables and what that means to the local market?
Oh yeah, so we had Whole Foods come to the facility, and Kansas City's right there between, Kansas is right on the other side of the state, or other side of the line, about 20 minutes away. And so in the state of Kansas, they was doing close to 30,000 heads of lettuce a month in the whole state from Whole Foods. And so Whole Foods said, we will buy your lettuce from you. And so, I didn't want to go with Whole Foods, even though it would be able to bring income in, because it made no sense that we're in an urban core and people were looking for some healthy vegetables. And I was going to take the vegetables out of the urban core and ship them to Whole Foods where people couldn't pay to buy the produce at Whole Foods. So it didn't make sense to me to partner with Whole Foods at the point in time for me to ship out vegetables when people in the inner city need those quality vegetables. Usually when you're urban core, those grocery stores have different grades and different quality of vegetables inside of the urban core as opposed to out in suburban areas. And so, we get a lower grade type of product and we pay the same amount for a lower grade. And so sometimes you have to be the change. I can't sit there and argue about Whole Foods. I just got to be the change and be able to provide the same quality of vegetables at the same or lower price than what Whole Foods would get them at. So sometimes you got to stand on your square, and we about the community and the people more over profit. And so we can design another greenhouse and then ship it to Whole Foods, get some income coming in, but originally that's how we pretty much started. And we'll be working with a grocery store that's right down the street to sell some of our fish that was like 2 blocks down the street, at Sunfresh.
Just correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if you mentioned about, just wondering, I know you mentioned that people come in and just pick some of the produce that you have outside the fence line, if I'm not mistaken. I was wondering about the produce you have inside the fence. Do you hold like markets, farmers markets for them to buy fresh produce from there?
Yeah, they can come by daily and get the stuff. So we have some caterers that come by. We have some soup kitchen that has like a sliding scale about to sell to. So it's like a soup kitchen, but it's more of an upscale, pay as you go. So if you can't afford anything, you have to work like 15 minutes at the facility there, and you get a free meal. But if you can pay, it's usually pay as you go. So most people pay extra so they can pay it forward. And so selling to those kind of entities where they get quality food, it's not the canned stuff or the stuff that's going bad. They usually go in the soup kitchen, because usually that's what happens. You get the day old stuff and they eat that stuff. And so providing the quality food to those type of entities is what we're looking at as far as what we're trying to accomplish.
No one has any questions? Let's give Mr. Taylor a hand round.
Really appreciate Mr. Dre Taylor coming and talking to us. Very informative talk, and we hope there'll be a continued partnership and a continued relationship. So on behalf of Dean Whitaker and the leadership team, the School of Agriculture here at Langston University, this little token of our appreciation.